Hello to all of you FGO enjoyers. Today we will be looking at my top 5 single target archers in the game. Before we start, I have 4 points to make. Firstly, this is just my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. Secondly, this list was so hard to make since the archer class is so stacked it's not even funny. If some servant isn't here, it's just because the list isn't big enough. Thirdly, no, Super Orion isn't on the list. He is self-buffer, so kinda in a class of his own. EX rank nonetheless. And finally, subscribe now. Sorry about the long intro. With that out of the way, let's start. Coming up at number 5 we have the King of Knights. Yet again, Summer Artoria. Now. Don't send the death threats just yet. This servant is still amazing to this day. She can deal consistent damage and help with stalling. Her first skill is an arts buff for herself and a defense up for all allies on a decent uptime. A very solid skill that helps with damage and NP gain. Her second skill is a massive heal at the cost of 10% of her NP on a very low cooldown. The demerit can be ignored since she has really high NP gain anyways. Her third skill is just a charisma that buffs star gen for male allies. Quite weak compared to nowadays. Her NP, and this is her bread and butter in my opinion. It deals damage to one enemy and has a chance to drain their NP. It also gives her a 20% refund. This NP has a decent numbers of hits and its arts as well. Basically this NP can loop like crazy, and it's not even hard to do at all. Keep in mind she easily looped her NP before Castoria even showed up. So imagine now, the only reason she is not higher is because she's the only 5-star on this list. Spoiler warning I guess. And compared to the 4 stars, she doesn't really offer anything that justifies her being harder to get and level up. Coming in at number 4, we have Chiron, Mr. Horse himself. This guy is one of the most flexible servants in the entire game. He can be an amazing support with good utility or can easily be your main DPS. First skill is a Mind's Eye True. It's a solid defense option. Nothing crazy. Second skill is a solid crit buff for all allies on a high uptime and a star bomb. It comes with a demerit that can easily be ignored. This is an amazing skill. In comparison, Hans crit buff is only 40% and has no star bomb. Third skill is a targeted rainbow buff on a decent uptime. The fact this skill is targetable makes it so flexibility. Another very good skill, his NP, and this is why I have him on the list since it got buffed. It's now an arts nuke that removes all defensive buffs before dealing extra damage to earth enemies, which there are a lot of. It then reduces the enemy's crit chance for 3 turns. Defensive buff removal before damage is just too good and it's why I have him over Ashvathaman since his does it after damage. Overall an amazing servant that doesn't get as much attention as deserved. Coming up at number 3, and this can be a bit controversial, it's Summer Anastasia. Not only is she one of the cutest beings I have laid eyes on, she's is also an amazing arts DPS. First skill is an arts buff for 3 turns along your casual 50% battery. The arts buff has a low uptime because of the battery, but still a very good skill. Second skill is an invincibility with a buff removal resistance and a good star bomb. This skill is an amazing defensive skill considering it's on a 5-turn cooldown. Her third skill is kinda stupid. It gives her ignore evasion, arts cards star absorb, crit and NP damage up. All this on a stupidly high uptime. She will have all these up 75% of the time. An amazing skill. Very cool passives. Her NP inflicts arts down for 1 turn before dealing damage and then applies skill seal for 1 turn. A very solid NP that can deal really good damage thanks to her self buffs and can be spammed easily. My only problem is that I am not the biggest fan of skill seal. Still, overall an amazing servant. Coming up at number 2, we have Asagami Fujino. Where do I even start? This servant is one of the best buster archers in the game. She also has an amazing skill of avoiding coming to me when I am rolling for her. How did I get Shiki and not her? Anyways, she has the highest attack amongst all 4-star archers. Her first skill is absolutely ridiculous. It gives her a big buster buff, ignored defense and NP gain on a high uptime. This is one of if not the best buster self buff in the game. Only skill that can be compared is Arthur's first skill, and he's a 5-star. Argument can be made that this skill is even better. Second skill, a star bomb and a sure hit on a high uptime. It's a good piece of utility, a decent skill. Third skill reduces her max HP by 2000, gives her damage cut and guts on a high uptime. This skill makes her an absolute juggernaut. She will basically take 0 damage from most card attacks on her. An amazing defensive skill. Her NP, which got buffed to now deals extra damage to super large enemies. Inflict buff block 1 time for 3 turns and reduces enemies attack for 3 turns. Buff block is an amazing debuff to have on enemy bosses, and this NP does very solid damage. She is simply just an amazing servant overall. Before number 1, there would be a massive list of honorable mentions. But the one I wanna mention the most is Tomoe, because she's my favorite. The only reason she isn't here is because she doesn't offer much outside of damage, but a very solid servant nonetheless. Coming up at number 1, I have to do it, it's Kuro. How is this servant a welfare? She is without a doubt one of the best welfares we got, along with Kintoki Rider. She has high attack and both very good NP gain and star general, especially when combined with her third skill. First skill is a Mind Eye Fake, solid defense option and a crit buff on a decent uptime. Second skill is Weak Rainbow Mana Burst, it's an okay skill. Third skill is just a casual 50% NP battery along a 100% star gen up. This is an amazing skill. It makes her able to consistently generate stars despite being an arch servant. And then there is her NP. It applies Ignore Evasion before dealing damage and then lowers the enemy's crit chance for 3 turns. Keep in mind that she is a free NP 5. This NP can deal stupid amounts of damage. Plus it can be spammed so easily. She is still top tier to this day. Bring her along for any saber boss fights and she will do great. The reason I gave her over the others is because she's a welfare, so easier to obtain than the other servants. Do you agree with the list? Let's discuss it down in the comment section. Be sure to check out my top 5 AoE sabers, and my top 5 series. That's it for this video. Now like and subscribe to this shitty channel. Bye.